So on February 10th, 2025, our Holy Father Francis Jorge Bergoglio, the Argentine Jesuit Pope elected while the other Pope was still alive, issued a letter to the U.S. bishops about the crisis because, the evil orange man, Trump, is actually trying to secure the borders of the United States and protect the poor citizens of the United States by removing, especially starting with the criminal gangsters who have come in illegally through the borders, through the open borders. And actually in the last 4 years of Biden, 10 million illegals have crossed into the United States. 10 million in 4 years. That's what is known. How many more have actually crossed. So that's on top of the, for the last 20 years, they've been saying, we have 10 million undocumented migrants. It's probably more like 20, 30 million. So there's probably 40 million undocumented migrants, meaning illegal aliens, meaning people who came into the United States illegally and stayed here. And because of the stupid laws of the U.S., they can apparently work. And the employers don't get punished for hiring non-U.S. citizens. To stop illegal immigration, you severely punish those hiring them. And then nobody will come because there is no work, period, end of story. And of course, they can't go to schools. How can people who don't live here, who are not citizens of the country, go to a public school, meaning for the citizens of the land, free? They are not even citizens. How can they go into free? Or go to the hospitals for free? Of course, our socialist Jesuit, the bishop dressed in white in Rome, is hopping mad because he hates sanity reigning. He hates Christian civilization. He hates Catholic civilization. He hates Europe and the United States. And in this case, his desire, his call is for the total destruction of the United States and Europe. How, you ask? How, YouTube guide? How does our Holy Father, he's so kind and nice and loving, how is he going to destroy the world? Well, he wants the unlimited, unmitigated right of total invasion of Europe and the United States by migrants because of their infinite dignity and their rights supersede any laws, any juridical laws. It doesn't matter. So basically 95% of the planet is going to move into the United States or Europe or Canada just because, life is better there, but not for long. The more millions you add in there, the less prosperity there will be. And then the whole planet will be, as Donald Trump a few years back said, a shithole. Anyways, so here's, before we go into the letter, because I heard about it yesterday or whatever it is, tried to make a video, my computer crashed, so trying to do it again. And I was actually starting reading the letter and giving my reaction spontaneously. So hopefully I can relive or present it the same manner. But here's in the, so 2 hours ago, Pope rebukes Trump administration over migrant deportations. And, it's all these different headlines. Pope Francis predicts Trump mass deportation program, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he's condemning keeping the United States safe, keeping the United States for United States citizens. He is condemning legal immigration for those who actually jump through the hoops to come legally, lawfully into the United States, into Canada, into France, into wherever other country. So these people can stay outside like idiots because they followed the law. They followed the regulations. They were decent human beings. So they can go to hell and let people who are criminal because they are banging down the doors of somebody else's house to let them in forcibly, in. This is the evil of Francis. So they asked Tom Homan, who is the border czar of the Trump administration. So the border czar, it says here, the Trump border czar tells Pope to stick to the Catholic Church. Hey, here. So Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, lashed out at Pope Francis on Tuesday after the pontiff described U.S. deportations of undocumented migrants, aka invaders, as a major crisis. So Francis is decrying, especially now, which is the vast majority being deported are 100%, like 99%, 98% convicted criminals. Criminals who murdered, who raped, who were in prison, who stole, all kinds of other crimes. After these are gone, then you head out to the other criminals who are in the country illegally. And of course, but their kids are born in the United States. Again, that's a big scam. If you go to Mexico, or you go to France, or you go to Italy, and you're pregnant and you have your baby in Italy, does he become an Italian citizen, or a French citizen, or a Mexican citizen? No, because that is total insanity and stupidity. It's only some stupid countries, like in the United States and Canada, that allow somebody to pop a baby in the land, and suddenly the baby is a citizen of that land. This is total garbage, and it creates baby tourism. People come specifically to the United States and Canada to have their children. I personally know relatives of mine who had 3-4 kids in the United States and Canada. They come in pregnant, they stay for the few months to have the kid, and magically they have the Canadian citizenship or the US citizenship. This is a scam. So yes, birthright citizenship to non-citizens or non-permanent, not permanent residents, but permanent residents, or legal, with a green card, legal migrants, then that has to be stopped. I'm visiting and have a baby, or I come in illegally and have a baby, and suddenly my kid is a citizen of that country. That's total insanity. So what did Tom Homan say to our heretic in chief, Francis, the bishop dressed in white, living at a hotel, Santa Marta, in Vatican City, because he dares not live in the apostolic palace? In one of my previous videos, I quoted so-called Pope Francis saying when he entered the apostolic palace to see, where he will stay, he had a feeling, he felt like a voice saying, "You don't belong here. You shouldn't live here. This is not for you." Yes, because Pope Benedict, who only resigned the exercise of the ministry, but not the ministry, who resigned as in his final declaration, the final audience says, by his action, this did not revoke what he received in 2005, meaning the papacy, but that he has given up the power of office for governance. He didn't give up the office. Read his final audience of Pope Benedict. And he lived as Pope, addressed as Pope, gave the apostolic blessing, blessed the cardinals elected, buried as, received the papal funeral, and buried as Pope in the tomb of Pope St. John Paul II. So, but apparently we have a Pope Francis as well. Magic. So what does Tom Homan tells him? I wish he, meaning Jorge Bergoglio, or as I like to say, Bergoglio, Jorge Francis, I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that. So fix the Catholic Church, Francis. But Francis, since 2013, since his election, has sought to destroy the Catholic Church. There was a prophecy, and I quoted previously in one of my other videos of St. Francis of Assisi, who predicted that an uncanonically elected pope will reign, who will become a destroyer. And Jorge was the first pope called Francis. And Francis has been a destroyer since day one, if you're not aware. So I'll say that. So fix that, and leave the border enforcement to us. Homan told reporters at the White House when asked about the Pope's remarks. And we say, "Oh man, this is an anti-Catholic Tom Homan. Oh, what a bad boy. He should respect our Holy Father." Well, Tom Douglas Homan, born in 1961. Actually, he was Homan was born in West Carthage, New York, into a Roman Catholic family. He's a Catholic. He was born into a Roman Catholic family, and he knows the state of the Catholic Church, how it is today, and he tells Jorge, Francis, to fix that first before you deal with things you know nothing about, or actually you are a cause of destruction. So, let us now go through the letter of our socialist bishop dressed in white residing in Vatican City at a hotel called Santa Marta. I'd love to see people just walking into the Hotel Santa Marta and say, let me stay. I'm an undocumented migrant. I want to go and stay at Jorge's bedroom. Is it big enough, his hotel room? Can I have a bed next to him? Because that's exact. And you dare to say, no, that's racist. Well, I have an infinite dignity. You have to let me in. That's according to Jorge. But of course, that won't happen. He'll have the Swiss guards escort them away from Vatican City totally. But you know, the total hypocrisy. He's a hypocrite and an evil man. Dear brothers in the episcopate, I am writing today to address a few words to you in these delicate moments that you are living as pastors of the people of God who walk together in the United States of America. And this walk together, this walking together, was the theme of their synod on synodality. Trying to make a new church out of the Catholic Church, an ape of the church, an anti-church. So this walking together, which means nothing, let's walk together. This is the idea of Francis as well about evangelization, is walking together. You don't proselytize. You don't actually tell people to convert to the faith. You don't explain the faith to people. You don't argue doctrine or make clear the doctrines of the faith to unbelievers or to those who do not hold the Catholic and Apostolic faith, maybe the Protestants, who personally I don't blame directly, but their ancestors, but they are believing in heresy. They are believing in error. They are not believing in the Apostolic Christian faith. So to argue with them, or to argue with Muslims, or to argue with Hindus, or to argue meaning discussing, making clear, not in hatred and anger, but in making clear. That for him is proselytism, and it's against the dignity of man, and it is evil, and it's against the gospel. I guess Jesus was an idiot and didn't know when he told these apostles to go and teach everyone to do exactly what he taught them and to preach the gospel to everyone and convert them and baptize them in the name of the Father and Son of the Holy Spirit. But Francis, that's evil. That's against the dignity of man. So, number one, the journey from slavery to freedom that the people of Israel traveled, as narrated in the book of Exodus, invites us to look at the reality of our time, so clearly marked by the phenomena of migration. Phenomena of migration. Why? The phenomena of migration is there because there is an incentive for migration in Europe and in the United States and in other places in Canada. But especially because Canada freaks out when they have like 300 people coming across the border. Now, when Donald Trump got elected, the Canadian news was like, oh my God, maybe a few hundred undocumented migrants are going to attempt to cross the borders in Canada illegally. So they put troops at the border, not troops, more guards and keeping an eye on people crossing into Canada illegally. So Canada could do it. But hey, 10 million in 4 years, that's fine and dandy. They can go into the United States. That's reasonable. But in Canada, a few hundred coming because of fear of being deported by Trump, that's bad. That's horrible. The hypocrisy again. And the phenomenon of migration, again, is, as I said, incentives. Europe and the United States, well, come on in. You can come in. Your kids, especially in the United States, your kids, boom, automatically U.S. citizens. Just have a bunch of kids here, automatically U.S. citizens. Then if we have to deport the parents, what are you going to separate families? You're going to separate the kids from their parents? Well, the kids can go back with their parents because they came in all illegally. And this, as I said, this pop a kid in a land and suddenly you're the citizens of that land is only for a few insane countries, not most of the planet. I'd love to see an American going to Mexico and having a kid in Mexico and demanding the Mexican government give their kid a Mexican citizenship. It's not going to happen. So, Yeah, so in the US and Europe, they just walk in, come on in, buy the boats from the Mediterranean, buy the tens of thousands, buy the hundreds of thousands, and we'll feed you, we'll give you shelter, put you into schools, we'll house you, we'll educate you, we'll give you even some credit cards with some money so you can spend. And same thing in the US. Okay, come on in, you can work, your kids can go to school, you can, why would anyone not be part of the phenomena of migration? I would be if I was living in one of these countries and poor. And it's like, well, actually, even a middle-class person in most of the world will say, wow, I can just walk into the US. Oh, I could make way more money than what I'm making in my own land. But of course, and that's why you have the phenomena of migration, because people, it's like you're telling them, come on in, and I'll give you all that stuff. So of course, they come on in. And then you say, oh, the poor migrants, what are we going to do with this migration problem? Oh, what are we going to do? Well, you invite them. You provide for them. You give the incentive. You do it. And basically, this phenomenon of migration, you bring in these people into your lands illegally. Your healthcare costs skyrocket. Your housing costs skyrocket. Your poor people, of the citizens of your lands, get more poorer, because now they have to compete with those willing to work for even cheaper and who use the limited resources of the country. So this phenomenon of migration is not some magic. It is a created phenomena. There are limited exceptions. Oh, somebody is against the government is seeking to execute him. Okay, that's a legitimate asylum seeker. Somebody converted to Christianity from Islam in an Islamic land, and he's going to get executed, or his house and kids are going to get killed by the mob in the village. Okay, that's a legitimate asylum seeker. But not anybody, oh, I want a better job. I want to be fed. I want to sleep around with all these easy European girls and American girls. That's what people in the Middle East think. The young men, say, wow, hey, go easy women, easy money. Why not? Let me just hop on a boat and cross the water. They can't send me back. It's against human rights and dignity. They know how to take advantage of the phenomena of migration. As a decisive moment in recent history, to affirm not only our faith in a God who is always close, incarnate, migrant, and refugee. That's annoying, really annoying. But also the infinite and transcendent dignity of every human person. No, the dignity of every human person is not infinite or transcendent. The dignity is not infinite. Only God is infinite. And actually, as the compendium to the Catechism of the Catholic Church states, the likeness of God is lost in those who are in mortal sin. The likeness of God is restored through baptism and living a virtuous life. So the dignity of man is lost through sin. So no, there is no infinite, transcendent dignity. Read the Catechism of your own church, Jorge. Number 2, these words with which I begin are not an artificial construct. No, they're socialist, anti-Christian propaganda. Even a cursory examination because cursory examination, that's exactly what your little puny brain is capable of, Jorge. Cursory examination. As you have a cursory understanding of the scriptures, have a cursory understanding of the fathers of the church, as you have a cursory understanding of the dogmas and doctrines of the Catholic Church, as you have a cursory understanding of the liturgy, ancient of the Catholic Church. That's your level of understanding. So, no, not a cursory understanding is enough. You have to have a deep and full understanding. Even a cursory understanding of the church's social doctrine emphatically shows that Jesus Christ is the true Emmanuel. But do you truly believe that he is the true Emmanuel? Well, I have a video with all his talk with the atheist Eugenio Scalfari, the atheist, his best friend, Francis' best friend. Basically, Francis denies hell, denies the eternity of punishment, denies the eternity of souls, basically denies even that Jesus, when he was on earth, was actually still God. Only when he was in heaven and then when he ascended into heaven. And none of that was denied by the Vatican, actually. And you can watch that video. I have all the interviews with Eugenio Scalfari and Jorge and Francis. He did not live apart from the difficult experiences of being expelled from his own land. Actually, Jesus was not expelled from his own land. He, with Joseph and Mary, escaped for their lives. They were not expelled because of an imminent risk to his life. Yeah, a risk to his life. He was not expelled, but he escaped. So, as I said, there are exceptions. He didn't go to Egypt because, hey, Joseph can make more money in Egypt. Oh, hey, in Egypt we can probably put little Jesus in a public school and he can get a better education with these, way higher standards of the Egyptians than the Hebrews. He didn't go there, but that's exactly the reason the migrants go to Europe and the United States. And from the experience of having to take refuge in a society and culture foreign to their own. Well, because of a threat to his life, not to make more money, to be greedy and self-centered. And the Muslims and most of these migrants who come into Europe go in not to blend into that society, but to alter that society. They live in their own societies, into Islamic enclaves and in no-go zones, and they seek to turn that society to their will and their culture and their way of life. So basically destroying Christian civilization. But I think Francis exactly wants that. The Son of God, in becoming man, also chose to live the drama of immigration. As I said, it was escape for his life. And as soon as the danger to his life was over, he, with St. Joseph and St. Mary, returned to their land. They did not stay in Egypt. They returned to their land when the danger to his life was over. Well, I wish all these undocumented migrants, but of course 99% of them are not here because of a threat to their lives. They just want more money, a better life for their kids. That would basically mean 95% of the planet would move into Europe and the United States. If that was like unlimited, okay, well, if that's the only reason, I can just walk in and break into the door. It's like somebody, you're in your house. The hypocrisy of these people and the liberals who say, welcome the migrants. Well, would you welcome a migrant? All these rich people have their gates and around their homes and guards and security systems. Well, why don't you welcome the poor little drug addict person in front of you? If they open your doors, of course they don't. It's basically like somebody going and knocking on somebody's door. Say, hey, can I come in and live in your house? Sorry, man, I've got my kids and wife, and I don't have room, and I don't have enough money to feed them, let alone feed you. No, but it's my rights, it's my human dignity. And they break the door. They attacked, border guards. They climbed the wall, tried to walk in forcibly into the United States. It's exactly as somebody kicking down the door of somebody's house and moving in and moving into one of the rooms and say, okay, I'm here now. Where's the fridge? Yeah, where's the justice and goodness and holiness of that? This is just pure evil. All right, let's see here. So yeah, he returned to his land after the danger to his life was over. And from the experience of having to take refuge in a society and culture foreign to his own, the Son of God, in becoming man, also chose to live the drama of immigration. I like to recall, among other things, the words with which Pope Pius XII began his apostolic constitutions. on the care of migrants. Again, Francis is a master of manipulation of the words of saints and doctors. He misquotes. He takes a quote out of context. He doesn't put the whole meaning in there. He was quoting St. Vincent of Lerins, who is, and I have a video on his book, The Comminatorium or something like that. It's basically said, St. Vincent of Lerins is his whole thesis, his whole dogma, his whole doctrine is we have to hold on to what has always been taught by all, everywhere, and to reject all and every innovation and novelty. That's the standard. And he talks about, how about if a part of the church embraces novelty, what do we do? How about if most of the church embraces novelty, what do we do? We stick to the received faith, which was taught by all, everywhere, and always. That is the standard. But Francis uses this anti-novelty, anti-innovation, traditionalist, true Catholic St. Vincent of Lerins to promote innovation, to promote novelty. He tries to quote him to promote novelty and innovation and change when he's totally, like he takes him completely 180 degrees opposite of what he was saying. Anyways, so he's talking about Pope Pius XII, and he's just taking, the beginning, the opening words, the words which began the Apostolic Constitution, which is considered the Magna Carta of the Church's thinking on migration. Again, one pope's teaching does not mean the entire 2,000 years of church teaching rests. It is his teaching, but okay, here it is. The family of Nazareth in exile. Why? Because Jesus was threatened with death. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, emigrants in Egypt and refugees there to escape the wrath of the ungodly king. That's the reason. They were not there to make more money, to have better education, to have nicer food and nicer weather. Are the model, the example, and the consolation of emigrants and pilgrims of every age and country, of all refugees and conditions who, beset by persecution or necessity. Again, I didn't read the whole thing, so I don't know what Pope Pius XII is talking about. Necessity, real necessity. Okay, if there's total starvation like there was in Ethiopia, they need to move, but not necessarily go to Europe. They can go to Sudan. They can go to, Ghana, Uganda, South Africa. They can go to other closer lands around them. They don't need to take a plane and go to the United States. Okay, that's necessity. Necessity isn't meaning, I can make more money in the United States, so yeah, that's necessity. No. They are forced to leave their homeland. Not, okay, hey, let's make a caravan and walk up to the border of the United States and break down the doors and walk in. They're forced to leave their homeland, beloved family and dear friends for foreign lands. That's the reason. It's not just the phenomena of migration of Jorge is 90%, 95% is like, hey, I can get a better job in Canada and the United States. I'll be provided food, shelter, money, education, healthcare. Why not? Better than what I have in my country, so I'm going to go. And of course, in the United States, the stupidity of, hey, I'll pop a kid and my kid's going to automatically be a U.S. citizen, so they can't really kick me out. Ooh. Again, using and abusing the system. Again, I do not blame them. I blame the laws and practices of Europe and the United States, which allow and incentivize the migration phenomena or the migration crisis. 3, likewise, Jesus Christ, loving everyone with a universal love, educates us in the permanent recognition of the dignity of every human being. Again, as I said, without exception. So yeah, you're a murderer, rapist, terrorist, killed 1,000. You have an infinite dignity without exception. No exceptions. That's why the death penalty, the exit, which was commanded by the God who made us in Genesis, God commands, orders the execution of those men who spilled the blood of man, of murderers. Their execution is commanded. Why does God do that? For the dignity of man, because he's made in the image of God. And this man killed man. God himself ordered their execution. But Francis calls the very command of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, against the Gospels and against the dignity of man. So Francis is putting himself above the one and only true God. No. In fact, when we speak of infinite and transcendent dignity, who is the we? You, Francis, with your own imagination and your own magisterium? Yeah, it's not the teaching of the Church. We wish to emphasize the most decisive value possessed by the human person surpasses and sustains every other juridical consideration. So we wish to emphasize that the most decisive value possessed by the human person. So the human person, he surpasses and sustains every other juridical, meaning lawful, something in law, consideration. Any law is below the dignity of man. Any law could be broken or surpassed or trespassed because of the value and dignity of man. So it doesn't matter. So laws mean nothing. So basically, Francis is promoting lawlessness. And who is the lawless one? The devil, the God of Francis. That can be made. So this is, I'm going to read that again. In fact, when we speak of the infinite and transcendent dignity, we wish to emphasize that the most decisive value possessed by the human person surpasses and sustains every other juridical consideration that can be made to regulate society. So all the laws in society against everything are below the dignity of man and his value, and that surpasses everything. So basically lawlessness. There is nothing that can be surpassed. Thus, all the Christian faithful and people of God and people of goodwill are called to consider the legitimacy of norms and public policies in the light of the dignity of persons and his or her fundamental rights, and not vice versa. So what is it? The fundamental right of me to invade somebody else's home and make it my home? Is it my fundamental right to walk up to Santa Marta, Jorge, break down the door, walk in, go in, knock on your door, force you to open the door, and go into the bedroom next to you or the bed next to you? Is that my fundamental right? Because that's exactly what is happening in countries. Countries are homes of those living in them. It is a family. So is it a fundamental right of me to break into another land uninvited and force myself in and live there and eat their food and take their jobs and steal their citizenship? Is that a fundamental right? This is fundamental evil from a brain-dead, fundamentalist, socialist, secularist man dressed in white called Jorge Bergoglio. I know a lot of people are going to get really mad at me the way I'm speaking about Francis, but I actually treat him as a non-issue, as a non-entity. I don't even care what he says. But in this case, I actually paid a bit of attention because, we've been known I got tired of talking about him from 2013, about all the evil he's been doing. So I really don't care. I'm just waiting for him to die, honestly speaking. Waiting for him to die and have a new pope elected, a real pope elected. And people say, well, if you believe Benedict was pope, so all the cardinals are null and void and there can be no pope and blah, blah, blah. No. Benedict basically blessed every single elected cardinal Francis brought to him, except the last one or two batches after he died. So Francis, in my opinion, is kind of like the administrator of the Vatican City, the impeded see. And cardinals during the Great Western Schism, the anti-Pope's cardinals with the real Pope's cardinals, both joined forces and elected a true Pope. That's how it ended. So nobody can say, well, we have to face the facts. Okay, these are up to the last batch, until the last Benedict died, vast majority of cardinals chosen by Francis were actually blessed by Benedict. So, yeah, so they are Benedict's cardinals too. So, and again, I'm hoping for a good Pope to take over, because Francis, I really couldn't care less what he says or does, because I just blow him out of my mind. Otherwise, I'll go nuts. Otherwise, I'll get very upset and cause me irritation. Doesn't mean the Catholic Church has failed. We just have a heretic at the head of them now, and his days are numbered. And in my opinion, he was never ever a pope, because Benedict never ever resigned the papacy, but simply its administration of its governing powers. That's my opinion. You can watch my videos and think of what I said. Anyways, and of course, Peter is the rock. Christ changed Simon's name to Rock when he called him Rock, and he said, I'm going to build my church on the rock, who is Peter. Otherwise, Jesus would be a total deceiver, because why wait until this instant to change Peter's name when he could have changed it like at the beginning? No, when he said, I will build my church on this rock, I will build my church, at that time he actually changed Peter's name to Rock, to Peter. Simon's name to Rock. So it's clear what is understood by there. But again, a pope is not as Benedict XVI used to say, he is not an absolute monarch whose will is law, but he is bound by tradition, by doctrine, by the church, by history, by the apostolic tradition. He's not a walking God, but a servant of the scriptures, a servant of truth. Anyways, all right, number 4. Let's see how many points there are. 10. I'll try to pick up the speeds here. Number 4, I have followed closely the major crisis taking place in the United States. The major crisis meaning the end of the corrupt state, the end and exposure of the deep state, the exposure of evil, which you have never said anything about when the pro-abortion, pro-death, pro-illegal immigration, pro-forced vaccines Biden was running the United States, where you said not a word to Pelosi, the pro-abortion feminist, the pro-murder of babies feminist senator, or whatever she is. You allowed her to receive Holy Communion in the Vatican, to eat and drink judgment upon herself. But that was not a major crisis. The major crisis from a secular socialist is the deportation or enforcing of the laws of the land, which are meant for the good of its own citizens. That's a major crisis for Jorge. With the initiation of the program of mass deportations, and again, as I said, the vast majority at this moment are convicted criminals, gang members being deported. Good. The faster it goes, the better. I hope like hundreds of thousands a month get deported. The rightly formed conscience, which you do not have, Francis, cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express its disagreement with any measure that tacitly or explicitly identifies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. Well, Jorge, all these ones who have been deported for the time being are legitimate criminals, gang members convicted in courts for rape, murder, assault, all kinds of things. Yes, they are criminals. And by the mere fact of breaking down the borders of somebody's house, the door of somebody's house, and walking into their home and making it your home without their consent, that is a criminal act. And that's exactly what illegal migration is. It is breaking down the house of the citizens of that land. So you are promoting criminality, you criminal piece of garbage. At the same time, one must recognize the right of a nation to defend itself and keep communities safe from those who have committed violent or serious crimes while in the country or prior to arrival. So he has to have that bit in, but of course, yeah, he, like the devil, he's double-tongued. That said, the act of deporting people who in many cases have left their lands for reasons of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration of the environment damages the dignity. So basically, for any reason whatsoever, I can come up with a billion reasons to leave. Oh, we had a flood in the village, so I got to go back to, I got to cross all from like the most south part of Latin America, all the way throughout every single Latin American countries. I go through Central America, I go through Mexico, all the way to the United States, and I have to go in. But I guess none of these countries, even your own country moving to a different place in that country, would do. This is a lie. All these people could go to a billion other countries en route, but no, they don't. They are heading to the land of milk and honey, to the land where their kids can automatically go to school for free, get citizenship when they pop a kid in there, and make more money. So they ignore every other country on the way to head straight to the United States. This is not any legitimate reason. If they were truly escaping something really serious, in their own land, in their own countries, they could probably find somewhere. If not in their own country, in the neighbor countries they could, but no. Many migrants who Mexico offered someone residency to stay. They refused, say, no, we're heading to the U.S. So this damages the dignity of man. Where is this here? Dignity of many men and women and entire families, and places them in a state of particular vulnerability and defenselessness. So maybe they should have just stayed where they are at, or go to a country which is close to their own land, where they can have a better life, or at least escape temporarily the inconveniences of their own land. Not head, 1,000 miles to the United States and ignore every other country on the way. Number 5. This is not a minor issue. An authentic rule of law is verified precisely in the dignified treatment of all people deserve, especially the poorest and marginalized. Yeah, but these so-called poorest and marginalized are breaking down the doors of somebody's house and walking in and living in it. That is not dignified or just or good in any way, shape, or form. The true common good is promoted when society and government, with creativity and strict respect for all rights, the rights of all. As, again, is it a right to walk into somebody's house and sit in it and make it your own home and open their fridge and eat from it? No, that is trespassing. That is not a right. Otherwise, I want to send you, Jorge, all your poor people in Rome to walk into Santa Marta, break down your door, demand entrance, and demand food from you, and stay and live there. And let's see how you think about that, Francis. As I have affirmed on numerous occasions, yeah, I know that's why I don't listen to you anymore. Welcomes, protects, promotes, and integrates the most fragile, unprotected, and vulnerable. So they always like to use these nice-sounding, compassionate words when their hearts are full of evil, because their ideas, their designs, their policies will only lead to destruction for all. This does not impede the development of policy that regulates orderly and legal migration. Well, you, Francis, you idiot, when you have a massive invasion, like 10 million invaders into the United States under the 4 years of Biden came into the United States, I think it was on CNBC mentioned that, 10 million in 4 years. That's what's accounted for. It's probably more than that. How can there be legal migration? The poor people actually waiting in line, doing everything they need to do to immigrate, are unable to come because the illegals have stolen their place in line. However, this development cannot come about through the privilege of some and the sacrifice of others. I don't understand what that means. What is built on the basis of force and not on the truth about the equal dignity of every human being begins badly and will end badly. So again, he's a total idiot. He's a total liar. He's a total evil man. What is built on the basis of force, well, who is the force? They force themselves into the land, into the country, into somebody else's house. Not on truth. Yeah, it is not truth. It is not good and true and beautiful for somebody to invade somebody's home, somebody's country. About the equal dignity of human beings. No, they have no dignity when they lose their dignity as the compendium of the Catholic Church, compendium to the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches, unless you go now run Francis and change it, order the change like you did for the death penalty in it. Dignity, human dignity is lost through mortal sin. And if you're not baptized, you do not have that dignity. The likeness of God, you don't have it. You have to be baptized to gain that likeness. You still have the image of God. So it begins badly, will end badly. Yeah, it begins badly and will end badly if we follow your advice and the advice of these and those like you. Number 6, Christians know very well that is only by affirming the infinite dignity. No, again, no. Not human beings don't have infinite dignity. Only God is infinite, and only an infinite being has an infinite dignity. Of all that our identity as persons and communities reaches its mature. Christians know that very well, that it is only by affirming the infinite dignity of all that our own identity as persons and as communities reaches its maturity. Blah, blah, blah. Christian love is not a concentric expansion of interests that little by little extends to other persons and groups. Yes, it is. A father is responsible for his wife and children, for his own household, for his own family. Jesus himself said, why would I give bread to dogs to the Samaritan woman? This food is reserved to the house of Israel. But she begged him. But of course, again, when the apostles started, they said the gospel was preached first to the Jews, to those closest, and then it went to the world, to the neighbors and to the rest of the community. So yes, it does expand. So first you start with your own household, then you go to your neighbor, then you go to further neighbors further away. A parent, a father, the head of the house, the president so the head of the family of the country or the king cannot ignore, so first of all, ignore his own people and care for people from another country above his own people. So a father would have to protect his own household, his own wife and children and their needs first and foremost. And then if he is able to, out of generosity, take care of his neighbor, especially those closest to him. First of all, his extended family. And then after his extended family, those in need around him. And then if that's taken care of, those further away. He cannot just say, well, my family can, go hungry, but I'm going to take care of kids in Mozambique, and I'm going to send them 25% of my income to the kids in Mozambique, but my kids in the house, they can go hungry. It doesn't matter. I'm loving and, the infinite dignity of man and all that garbage. In other words, the human person is not a mere individual, relatively expansive with some philanthropic feelings. That's basically what you are. You're all philanthropic feelings. Oh, the migrants, the poor people, let them in. The infinite dignity of man. Oh, welcome the migrants. Come in, Muslims, invade us. Open up your mosques and pray on our streets and take over our churches and, date our women and convert them and make them wear the hijab and have your own Sharia law. Yeah. That's Francis's his whole pontificate, so-called pontificate, is philanthropic feelings. The human person is a subject with dignity, who, through the constitutive relationship with all, especially with the poorest, can gradually mature to his identity and vocation. Blah, 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 blah. What does that really mean? The true ordo amoris, the order of love, I guess, that must be promoted is that which is discovered by meditating constantly on the parable of the Good Samaritan. Yeah, the Good Samaritan didn't have another Samaritan next to him who was in need, and then said he saw a poor, robbed Samaritan or a Samaritan village who are in need and starving, and he said, oh, let me ignore my own people. Let me ignore the Samaritans which are in need. And look, here's a Jews who hate us. I'm going to go leave my own people and go help the Jews who hate us. No, he was walking by. He did not have to give up anything from anybody. He saw somebody in need. Yes, he's a Jew. Yes, he's technically an enemy to the Samaritans, but he helped him out because he is a decent human being, and that's what we should do. But that person didn't go, that injured Jewish person didn't go and invade the Samaritan towns with his families, go into his Samaritan towns, take over a house, and demand the Samaritans to give him jobs and get his kids in school. But that's what the migrants are doing. That is That is by meditating on the love that builds a fraternity open to all without exception. Without exception. So yeah, let the 1 billion people in India come into Europe. How about that, Francis? Now, you'd welcome it. We'd have Hindu temples everywhere because, you welcome the Pachamama, the paganism of South America, welcome the paganism of India. Number 7, by worrying about personal, community, or national identity, apart from these considerations, meaning basically destroy your own identity, destroy your heritage, destroy your culture in favor of foreigners. Because when there's enough people from another culture into your own culture, their culture will dominate. You will, it's obvious. Even, people are afraid to identify Christian culture. Oh, look at the beautiful Islamic culture. Oh, look at the beautiful Sikh culture. Oh, look at the beautiful Hindu culture. Oh, look at the beautiful indigenous cultures. How about Christian culture? No, that's bad. That's evil. That's racist. Yeah, but Francis is promoting that. But worrying about personal community and national identity, apart from these considerations, most easily induces to ideological criterion that destroys social life and imposes the will of the strongest on the criterion of the truth. Will of the strongest, it's the very citizens of the land. It is my house. You can't just walk into my house and demand to live in my house, eat from my food, and be considered part of my family by me giving you citizenship. That is the criterion of truth. But for Francis, breaking in is the criterion of truth. This is the dignity of man. Number 8, I recognize your valuable efforts, dear brother bishops of the United States, as you work closely with illegal invaders and refugees, meaning migrants and refugees. Illegal invaders who broke in through the border illegally, and ask any legal immigrant from anywhere in the world. They are the toughest people against illegal migrants, just as I am. We and my family and my parents jumped through hoops to be able to immigrate. Do this, bring me these documents. Can you speak English? What is your medical records? How can you support yourself? When are you going to come? You have this limited period to show up, and if you don't show up, you have to reapply. We jumped through hoops to come legally. But these people can just walk in. Why did we bother? Why did we bother? We could have just walked across the border, and lived. This is illegality. No, there is a difference. So proclaiming Jesus Christ. You know what happens, Jorge? You know what, Francis, if you don't understand? If you're brain dead, but I'm pretty sure you know, and you love it. These migrants, these originally Catholic migrants, as soon as they walk into the United States, they become Bible-believing Christians. They abandon the Catholic Church, join Protestant sects, Pentecostalist sects, and abandoned Christianity, abandoned true Christianity, abandoned the Catholic faith and church. That's what happens. A lot of Protestant churches, or ecclesial communities as it is more accurately to be stated, because you don't have a priesthood or a clergy or valid sacraments other than maybe baptism, maybe. It's filled by these migrants. Proclaiming Jesus Christ and promoting fundamental human rights. God proclaiming Jesus Christ. Would you think Jesus Christ approves of people breaking the law? Approves of people breaking into somebody's house, just like the thief in the night in the parable of the Lord? Does Jesus approve of thieves breaking in and stealing? That's exactly what they are. No, Jesus Christ would not approve of that in the least. God will richly reward all that you do for the protection and defense of those who are considered less valuable, less important, and less human. Nobody said they're less human, or less important, or less valuable. They are just criminals for breaking the laws of the land and invading somebody's home. That's what they are. Number 9, I exhort all the faithful of the Catholic Church. So I guess that excludes you, Francis, Jorge Bergoglio, and all men and women of goodwill, not to give in to the narrative that discriminates against and cause unnecessary suffering to our migrant and refugee brothers and sisters. No, they should go back to where they came from. They should obey the laws of the land. Again, there are a few exceptions. Somebody's about to get executed. There's a death warrant on them. They are going to starve to death. But again, even though starving to death, they have 1 billion other countries to go to other than the United States. They don't have to cross Latin America, Central America, and Mexico to come to the United States. They have 1 billion other countries to stay in. Same thing with those crossing from Africa. They've got 1 billion other countries to stay in. No, they don't have to go to Europe and Germany and England. With charity and clarity, we are all called to live in solidarity and fraternity, to build bridges that bring us ever closer together, to avoid walls of ignominy. Okay, so are you going to break down the walls of the Vatican? Are you going to open the doors of Santa Marta, Jorge? And to learn to give our lives as Jesus Christ gave his for the salvation of all. He gave his life for the salvation of all, but all will not be saved. His salvation is efficacious for all, but only those who take advantage of this salvation will be saved. That's why when the consecration of the wine is, as the Catechism of Trent explains, yes, Christ died for all, but when the consecration of the wine, quoting Jesus himself, he says, this blood is for you and for the many, not for all. And the many is those who have been saved. Number 10, and finally, let us ask our Lady of Guadalupe to protect individuals and families who live in fear or pain due to migration and or deportation. May the Virgin Morena, who knew how to reconcile peoples, you mean convert them from paganism to Christianity? But, oh man, she's a very bad proselyte. The Virgin of Guadalupe is a very horrible proselyte who destroyed the dignity of the indigenous communities and made them Christians. When they all were at enmity, grant us all to meet again as brothers and sisters within her embrace, and thus to take a step forward in the construction of a society that is more fraternal, conducive, and respectful of the dignity of all. So how can you construct that society, Francis, when you have 10 million people invading in 4 years? Not counting and that's what accounted for, probably more than that then. And that's not counting the tens of millions who have come across illegally from the 70s into the United States, not to mention Europe. How can you construct a society when you have a total invasion? He ends it with Fraternity Francis. And as I said, there's no letter. Okay, I'm going to argue about the letters, but no letter, no so-called papal encyclical, no declaration of Francis where he actually says Francis PP, meaning Pope and Pontiff, or Pope Francis. He simply says Francis. Pope is never mentioned. Pope is never mentioned. Actually, I remember when he first got elected, he refused to be called Pope. He always preferred to be called Bishop of Rome, because that's exactly what he is. Because the Pope was still Benedict there. And Francis, in every document, in every encyclical, in every declaration, never says Francis P, Pope and Pontiff, like every other Pope did. So from the Vatican, 10 February 2025. So I hope my explanation, my deconstruction of our most holy, sane, loving, compassionate, merciful Holy Father Francis, his letter, again, bunch of meaningless garbage, insanity actually if it is implemented, because it is a guaranteed total destruction of the United States, a total destruction of all of Europe. If his ideas of open borders, infinite dignity of man, let everybody in and live and have their own thing, that's a guaranteed destruction of the United States, a guaranteed destruction of Europe. But then, is it any wonder that Francis of Assisi talked about an uncanonically elected pope who is not going to be a builder, but a destroyer? That's it. That's all. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, share. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.